Hello, my name is Alex and I am the host of How Bizarre Podcast, and this is episode 28 of the series. Hopefully you'll like it and the show will make some traction in the time ahead. So, what is this podcast about? It's about storytelling, and especially about stories that are obscure, unknown to the wider public, strange and sometimes inexplicable, content that somehow never got the attention it deserved, stories that are forgotten in the mists of time regardless if they happened yesterday or some centuries ago. So if you are attracted to bizarre, shocking or just plainly weird stuff, I think you'll find this podcast very informative and perhaps even entertaining. This podcast is for mature audiences and listener discretion is advised. All that being said, now let us dive into the 28th episode of How Bizarre Podcast. This is the unusual and sad story about Kaspar Hauser, also known as the man who came out from nowhere. On the 26th day of May 1828 in Nuremberg, Kingdom of Bavaria, shoemaker named Georg Wakeman saw a young man of some 15 to 20 years of age approaching him, all in rags, limping and uttering unintelligible sounds. Wakeman asked the man if he is all right, if something has happened to him, but receives only a vague mumble in response. The young man hands him a letter in response, addressed to the captain of the 4th Squadron, 6th Cavalry Regiment, Nuremberg. Taking pity on the young, starving and obviously disoriented man, Wakeman decides to try to help him. He brings him home, gives him food and sees that something is wrong with the child. He panics and is afraid of various objects and runs away from the light. He is also disgusted by the food of meat and potatoes, and when he's presented with dry bread and water he eats like there's no tomorrow. The only thing they get as a response from the unknown person is "Weiß nicht," meaning I don't know anything. After some time, the shoemaker finds the captain of the 4th Bavarian Squadron named Friedrich Wessenig, who opens the letter in amazement and reads that the child's name is Kaspar Hauser, that he was born in 1812 and that he was imprisoned in a cellar under a house where he had contact with the light once a day at a time when food was brought to him. He was never let out of the basement where during his 16 years of imprisonment he was kept company by rats and several wooden toy horses. It is also stated that he was the unwanted fruit of someone's passion and that it would be best if Captain Wessenig took care of him and enrolled him in a military school. Why should Wessenig undertake such a massive duty was not explained. Wessenig, not intending to take care of Kaspar, takes him to the police where the case needed to be clarified. People thought that Kaspar was an imbecile because he couldn't form at least one reasonable sentence. He was thus put in prison under the pretext of being a vagabond. We must have in perspective that in 19th century there was this scale of so-called mental retardation in which an idiot was the lowest and most severe, imbecile was one step above, and moron was borderline case between normal and retarded. Once in his prison cell, it became obvious that Kaspar was used to solitude and darkness. Even his constitution is strange, like someone who has spent his whole life in a low cell, hunched over. His fate intrigues several people who try to solve the mystery. With the first contacts with people with better intentions than ridicule, Kaspar denies the claims that he is mentally retarded. On the contrary, Kaspar very quickly learns to read and write, and after a while comes under the tutelage of Georg Friedrich Dahmer, a professor and philosopher. This is where a complete transformation of Kaspar's takes place, who in a few months goes from being illiterate and semi-mute to reading philosophical works and talking to his mentor Dahmer, which represents an unprecedented speed of intellectual development in known history. Thought as a feral child until that point, Kaspar has been learning how to draw for a few weeks, paints his first landscapes, composes, uses both his right and left hand, phenomenon known as ambidexterity, and begins to write his autobiography. Some of his sketches survive to this day. In his autobiography he says that he doesn't know who he is, who his parents are, where he's from, or how he ended up in Nuremberg. He knows that he lived in a basement, that someone gave him food through an opening on the side, that from time to time the water they gave him had a strange taste that made him fall asleep, that he had not seen a complete human face until the day he appeared in Nuremberg, and he did not know who gave him the letter asking a total stranger that was Captain Wessenig to take care of him. This autobiography made him a celebrity throughout Europe at the time. The public was interested in the bizarre fate that befell Kaspar Hauser. The city of Nuremberg was offering a reward for information that would solve the mystery, but no one claimed the reward. There was no Hauser family in Bavaria. An investigation was also opened, which after a while got stuck, in part because the facts cannot be separated from the speculations that claim that Kaspar is of noble or even royal origin, coming from this or that dynasty or house. Little by little, Kaspar hopes to lead a normal life, but on 7th October, 1829, an attempt was made to liquidate him. Kaspar was found with a large wound on his head caused by a hammer. The assassination attempt takes place in the house of his mentor Dahmer. After this event, other people want to help him, philanthropists like Anselm von Feuerbach and the English millionaire Lord Stanhope, who decide to protect Kaspar's life. A mercenary is hired to guard Kaspar, but it was all in vain. On 11th December, 1833, Kaspar Hauser was slaughtered not far from his new home in Ansbach provided by his benefactors. After 8 days of push and shove, getting in and out of consciousness, Kaspar died on 19th of December 1833. The killer has never been found. Whether it was a sadistic experiment, continuous maintenance of tabula rasa over a span of 16 years, imprisonment due to belonging to an aristocratic hereditary line of succession, or something completely different, is not known. Kaspar Hauser's latent mental superior abilities that came to the fore after he had escaped from the basement and was treated like a human being are also the cause of speculation as to his fate and death. Only sadness remained. On his tombstone in Ansbach there are these words: "In this place for unknown reasons an unknown man was killed by another unknown man." It lies in this place the conundrum of our time, place, and time of birth. Unknown reason for murder, unknown. I hope you all liked episode 28 of this podcast. Thank you so kindly for listening, and I will be back next time for episode 29 of the How Bizarre podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, sharing, and above all, subscribe to this channel, dear listener. Because, why not? Join me next time for another bizarre adventure through space and time. Cheerio.